Hi everybody! Upon popular request, I'll show you how to take any pop song and add that jazz magic, making it richer, spicier, and more sophisticated. So today I'll show you 4 techniques that take your covers to the next level. My name is Sandra Sherman, and I simplify jazz for you. First up, let's talk about adding tensions. This is one of the simplest ways to make your chord sound jazzier. You can add 9th, 11th, 13th, or even alterations to any chord, giving it a more complex and interesting sound. For example, let's take a plain old C major chord. Now, if we add the D on top, we get an interesting C major 9 sound. That's one of the most common jazz flavors. We can even make it a C major 13 chord up here. Here are all the chord groups and their tension chords. You can exchange them with any chord within the same group. Just pause the video if you want to see this insert longer. Let's start easy and try this with every breath you take and make it a jazz ballad. The verse basically just has 4 chords here: A, F sharp minor, D, and E. The song already has some pretty cool add 9 chords here. But they're hard to play and we want to make it a little jazzier. Alright, we start with the A chord and we want to jazz it up, play an A major 7 chord. We can even play that with the open A string here. It's an A major 7 chord. I play a jazz swing rhythm. Then I just pick through the rest of the time is left. Just random picking. Then I go through the to F sharp minor 11. That's a cool chord. Also, we can take advantage of the open B string here. Open E string on top. Right? And then we go to the 4 chord. The 4 chord, in triads, you don't see a difference. A or D, that's the same. It's just a triad. But when you add tensions to it, there is a difference. The 11 becomes the sharp 11. And that's a really cool sounding chord, the Lydian chord. D major 7, sharp 11. That's D, F sharp, C sharp, another F sharp, and G sharp. Here's the sharp 11. So bar all the way through. Right? And the same, well, actually it's just 1 bar. So now I just play this rhythm. And then we go to the 5 chord. And the 5 chord, in the triads, there is no difference. A, D, E, right? Almost sounds like a rock song. But now if we want to add some jazz, you have to know the tensions. And the 5 chord is a 7 chord, a dominant chord. Its tensions are 9, 11, 13. Let's add a 9 sus4. Sus is like the 11th, but without the 3rd. So E9 sus to E9. And now you get this really cool sound. And then we go back to either F sharp minor in the first verse or A major in the second verse. So I close this with A major 7 and A major 13 here. For a systematic approach to jazz guitar, check out my Jazz Starter Packs. The link is in the video description or bio. Next up, we have the 2-5 or 2-5-1 progression. Now, this is the most common progression in jazz. And even though pop music doesn't use it much, it can add a ton of character when you slip it in. Here's how it works. In the key of C, the 2 chord is D minor 7. The 5 chord is G7, and the 1 chord is C major 7. You can always add a 2 chord before every 5 chord, even if it does not resolve to its 1 chord. Don't Stop Believing is currently very popular. So let's give it that jazz touch and use the 2 chord substitution. We have the pop hit formula here, which is 1, 5, 6, and 4. In the key of E, that's E, B, C sharp minor, and A. This chord progression has been used in thousands of pop songs. The 5 chord is the B, so let's add its 2 chord before it, which is an F sharp minor 7, and we get this progression. I start with that E major 7 chord here instead of a plain E. Going to an E major 9. And now we would have the B coming up. That's the 5 chord, so B7. But I played 2 before it, so that's an F sharp minor 7 here. And go right into B13. That's a jazz thing here, this motion. That's a 2-5. C sharp minor 11. Na, 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 na. And the 1 chord A, and the 1 chord is always major. Na, na, na. Back to E, starts all over again. Da, da, da. And again, I play in before the B, I play the F sharp minor. This time we're down here to B9, and then flat 9 even. We can also alter chords. It just has to fit the melody, and it does actually. Na, da, 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 going. And then it goes to the 3 chord. We haven't mentioned that yet, but there's also a 3 chord in there, and that's G sharp minor. And we can play G sharp minor 11 here. And E, back to the 1 chord. Here is a sophisticated 1 chord, A major 9, 13. Just pick through. If you can't play, just play a regular A major 7 here, or even the one down here we had in the first song. But this one's really cool. Right? Then we continue and we go a little up. And I'll play an F sharp minor 9 for a change. Going to B9 without the root. So we have so many chords here, and you can download the tabs from the info box below. So you get some inspiration. C sharp minor 11, and back to A major. And now for the last chorus, I go up to this E major, F sharp minor, B flat 13, we had that already, but now I want to go up to the G sharp minor up here. And here's a special thing. The G sharp minor is the 3rd degree in E. E, F sharp, G sharp minor. And the tensions are flat 9, 11, and flat 13. So we cannot, while we had the G sharp minor 11 was perfect down here. But up here we would have a G sharp minor 9. That doesn't fit because B flat is not in the E major scale, which we are in right now. So what we can do is we have to play a G sharp minor 7 by moving the finger out. And we can get another one by having the index here. And then going to that A major. Please help to keep the free video tutorials running, and you can do so by clicking the thanks button and donate a little something. Thank you. A jazz favorite for adding color and tension is adding in the 5 chord of the next chord. These additional 5 chords are called secondary dominants. We can alter these dominant chords so they have altered tensions. And one very popular way to do this is to play a diminished chord. And this is how it works. You can play a diminished chord from each of the chord tones of the altered chord except the root. If we want to substitute an A7 chord, for example, and want to use a diminished chord, you just play from the 3rd, for example, that's C sharp, diminished. Or you play from the E, that's the 5th of the chord, you play a diminished chord. C sharp, diminished, E diminished. That's 3 frets away, the same chord. And all these chords, C sharp diminished, E diminished, have the exact same tones, just in an inversion. This is an inversion of this chord. And they're both A7 flat 9. Let's continue this. The next chord tone in A7 would be the 7th, G. That's a G diminished. G diminished is the same as C sharp and E diminished. They are all the same thing. They repeat themselves all 3 frets. That's the miracle of diminished chords because they are symmetrical. They only consist of minor thirds. And now instead of the root, we said we use the 1 step up, the flat 9. That's the B flat, here or here. And you have all 4 chords. Now let's apply this knowledge to the sound of silence. That's a pretty simple song actually, in the key of D minor by Simon and Garfunkel. It has such a dark and melancholic sound to it, which will work great for giving it some more color. Created a little intro, 2-bar intro with just the D minor chord. This is my picking pattern here. Here we go. And then I add in the first secondary dominant, an A7 altered chord, which is the 5 chord of the D minor chord, right? A secondary dominant is defined by you can start a dominant chord on each of the scale tones. So in F or D minor, F, G, A is the 3rd degree, so you can play a dominant chord here. And that's a secondary dominant chord, because usually there would be a minor chord there, okay? Da, 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 da. We start with a C7. That's how the song starts, with a C chord. The C chord is the 5 chord of the song, so a 5 chord per se is always a dominant chord. Make it a C7. And it has 2 bars of that, so we're getting bored as jazzers, so we play a C sharp diminished. You just learned that from the flat 9, which is a half tone above, we can play a diminished of the C. It gives us a C sharp 7. And then we go back to D minor. And now the F major 7 instead of a regular F chord, and then the B flat major, that's the 4th degree. And we again can play a Lydian sound. We had that in a previous example. If it's the 4th degree of the scale, play this beautiful Lydian sound, if it fits the melody. And then the F major 7. And now for the 2nd bar of F major, we can play this typical ascending movement from F to B flat, going diatonically, F, G, chromatic, A, landing on B. And we harmonize that F with F major chords. Then the 2nd degree of F is G minor, then a passing chord, G7 diminished, resolving to F major with the A in bass. And now we're here on B flat, Lydian again, and going to F. Then another F, major 9 in this case. Da 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 da. Da, back to B flat major regular chord. Da 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 da. And now play a B diminished. That B diminished is just a passing chord from B flat to B to C. You can play only that B diminished chord if it fits the melody. And now we have an F with the C in bass. It's not a C chord, it's an F chord here. The C is the 5th. I play the 5th in bass, it's an inversion. So that gives us a beautiful transition. Subwoods and tenement halls, D minor. Within the C is a 5 chord, so we make it a C13 in this case. Then I add the C sharp in, C sharp diminished. And of silence, D minor resolves. C sharp stands for the C7, we learned that already down here. Also, the C sharp has a double function. It can also be the 5 chord for A7. So A7, the 3rd, we get a C sharp diminished as well, right? Because these are the symmetrical chords. They can substitute 4 different dominant chords. In this case, C7 or A7. And why is that A7 important? Because A7 is the 5th degree of D minor and resolves to D minor. Even if that's too much for you and too quick for you now, all you need to know is you get a nice passing transition here, right? From C, C sharp, D minor. You can always use diminished chords to transition between the bass notes, to have a smooth transition. And in the end, I add another 5 chord, A7, to go back to D minor. Now, jazz is not just about chords, it's about rhythm too. Pop songs are often straight and steady, but jazz relies on swing and syncopation. You can add that swing feel or play around with syncopated rhythms to make any song feel jazzy. I've already used the standard jazz rhythms in this lesson, but let's briefly analyze them. In jazz, we use swing rhythms, so that means in 2/8, the first is longer. Long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. And we count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now the most used jazz rhythm is very simple. It's 1 and 2 and. So it's 1, 2, you have a rest. 1, 2 and 4. 1, 2 and. I've used that rhythm in the previous examples. You can spice it up a little by adding a 1 and in. Of course, you can also just strum through it. That's a strong strumming rhythm. Make sure that the 2 and the 4 are a little louder. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also play a nice bossa nova rhythm. Bossa uses jazz harmonies anyway, so this is a great way if you don't want to change the song to a swing rhythm, but stay in an even rhythm. Let's try the bossa rhythm with Benny King's song, Stand By Me. When the night has come. have G and we have only 4 chords, G, E minor, C, and D. So we start with the G major 13 chord instead of just G, and we play a nice 2-bar bossa nova rhythm over this chord and the regular G major 7 chord. Now here it is. So that's our basic bossa nova rhythm for the first 2 bars already. Then we go to E minor and we play an E minor 9 chord up here. You can also play the alternating bass with the 5th. The 5th is always right below the root. So you play the root once, and the next time you play the 5th below, while the pattern keeps running back to the root and to the 5th, right? Then we have a C chord and we play a C major. And remember, here it is again, our 4th degree. I love that 11 sound, C major 7, 11. Well, 1 bar, and then for the next bar we have the 5 chord D. That's a dominant chord. And D9 sus4 is a dominant tension chord. And the second bar, half of the bar, I go over to the 9 chord. So I have these 2 bars. Going to G again. This time I take this G, and then I add in the 5 chord. So I don't want to have G at the end, and at the beginning I play a 5 chord of G that's D altered, right? And then I continue up here, and down here it's G major 9, that was G major 7, E minor 9, C major 7 this time, D9, D7 flat 9 if it fits the melody, and it does, and G major, and then D9 and E flat diminished. That's a D7 flat 9 starting on the flat 9th. We've learned that in the previous chapter. So you go. And that goes to the chorus of the song, which has the same identical 4 chords, just a little different melody. And I go a little more poppy here. I play a different rhythm now. I play, then I snap, and then I play very quick arpeggiated. Okay? Actually, I start with the major 13, then major 7. Then I go to this E minor 9 chord. That's a beautiful, beautiful pop chord. And then by just moving 1 finger to the right, I get that C major 9 sharp 11 chord. 4th degree sharp 11, remember? So this is a nice pop chord. Then I do that hammer here. Then I go to D11 chord. That's basically just moving a plain C over here to get a D11. Back to G. And at the end, the 5 chord D7 altered. D7 flat 13 it is actually. With the 7th bass. That's such a cool chord. If you want to dig deeper into jazz, check out my channel with hundreds of chord melody jazz tutorials and concept lessons and how to learn jazz. Please give this video a fat thumbs up so it gets seen by others. Please subscribe my channel, share the love and the knowledge, and I hope to see you next week. Servus, Baba.